Hello, I'm Jay Davenport, Vice President of Development and Alumni Relations at VCU. And in this episode of VCU Voices, I'm pleased to welcome our special guest, Dr. Michael Rao, President of VCU and VCU Health Systems. Now, all of you know Dr. Rao, and you know that he has led VCU since 2009. Now, during his presidency, VCU has reduced the graduation gap for underrepresented populations while also achieving national prominence for exemplary academics, creativity, research, and innovation. So, Dr. Rao, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jay. It's great to be with you, and I'm so glad that you're doing this. It's wonderful to have this opportunity to connect in as many ways as we can with as many of our alumni, friends, and supporters.
Absolutely. Now, normally at this stage in the year, we would have visited several cities by now. We would have celebrated an in-person graduation. It has been such an unprecedented year. But how would you describe VCU's approach so far as handling the COVID-19 pandemic, and what should we be prepared for the coming months?
Yeah, so I think that we put a lot of thought into this program that we call One VCU Responsible Together, and it really worked. I mean, everyone was very much responsible together. We probably had the most compliant community of any of the higher ed communities in the country. I'm on many national boards, and I enjoy listening to my colleagues talk about what's going on at their campuses. But here at VCU, we did not experience a lot of the just sort of pushback on things that we know science was telling us we needed to do.
Right.
We knew that masks would work before we were vaccinated. We knew that it was really important for us to have some distance between ourselves. And candidly, safety has to always be your number one priority, no matter what. And safety did become our number one priority, and it guided everything. We were very fortunate, Jay, to have a university with a large number of people who are expert in this area. For instance, we have an entire division of infectious disease. We were doing a lot of testing as well. And
Right.
of course, it becomes a matter of importance in the context of injections, which vaccinations are in the form of. We have a pathology department that was very helpful to us. And we have a large number of safety staff who are really experts at directing traffic when people aren't supposed to connect with each other in person, and all of those risks that we needed to mitigate. So we're very, very fortunate. We put together a group that was our response group. It was called the Public Health Response Team. So it took all of these folks along with representative faculty members, with representative students and staff members, and it helped us to really get our hands around how to deal with one of the biggest challenges that any of us as humans have seen in literally the last 100 years. So the other thing that we were able to do is leverage a lot of national strategies. Although I have to tell you, this is the truth, not just bragging about VCU. I got more questions from the nation about what VCU was doing and how we made it work so well than I did the other way. But that's the best place to be, right? Imitation is one of the greatest forms of flattery there is. And so, but we did have the hospitals and clinics that really helped us in tremendous ways. And by the way, we really didn't ever shut down our health system. We had a short shutdown that we had to deal with. But the fact of the matter is, by May, more than a year ago, we were fully operational and totally tied back into our patients and their care.
It was truly amazing, a true testament to the team, the leadership, and just the resilience of everybody at VCU Health.
Yeah, no question about it.
Now, obviously, this was an unprecedented year, but during your presidency over the last 12 years, what would you say have been the biggest changes at VCU?
That's a great question. And there are so many that I really have to think about it. And so I would say, I guess that the changes that really stick out in my mind are, going from a 48% graduation rate up to about 70%. That's about 1,800 students more who graduate from VCU, 85% of whom stay in the Commonwealth of Virginia, have a tremendous level of impact on our economy, on society, just in terms of their knowledge and their ability to understand how things work. And of course, we have a strong leadership component in everything that we do at VCU, regardless of the discipline students are in. We expect them to be the leaders, the top of their disciplines. And they really show that in many, many ways. So there's that. I would also say a significant increase in patient experience. So our outpatient patient experience has been top decile for the last 3 quarters in a row. I'm very, very proud of my colleagues for that. Top decile in the nation, by the way. That's really, really hard to achieve. But our patients have been very, very satisfied with the services and the clinical care that they're getting. And frankly, when they don't have to return to the clinics because they got good care, that really helps everybody, including them. So our orientation increasingly toward patient wellness has really helped. And of course, it's a great thing to teach our students, our medical students, our dental students, our nursing students, our pharmacy students, and all the students in the health professions and social work and all of the related areas. The other thing that's a very visible change is that we have had significant physical additions to our campus. So I actually was just told this recently. We've now spent about 4.4 billion since 2009, and we've added about 11 million square feet to VCU. So that's a significant addition, and they're high quality spaces. They're spaces that are really in keeping with one of the nation's major research universities. And of course, most of them are spaces oriented towards students and their needs. So I'm very proud that our team has been able to accomplish so much with that. The other thing that I'd say is really amazing is development itself. So your area. When I came, on average, we were raising about $48 million a year. And now we have consistently been up, way up over 100 million. In some years, 135 million, just so much greater participation. So the money's important, but the engagement's even more important, right? We're a community and we want people to be a part of what we're doing. We want people to be excited about this mission. It's a mission about access and experiences that lead students in a timely way to a degree that enables them to live a life they could never have really imagined before they did that.
Without a question, absolutely. And it's one of the things that we've seen this year, people still seeking that community, whether it be through Zoom or internet in virtual activities. But the VCU community really does seek that engagement.
The VCU community really does, and we need to. So one of the greatest things that I had the advantage of getting during this whole coronavirus situation is the expertise from not just the scientists, but the clinical scientists, the infectious disease experts. And while the media and others were, very focused on, the sort of notion of shutting down or listening to groups of people who might not have had the scientific understanding or really the knowledge to be talking about what to do or what not to do. I benefited from that. And that's one of the reasons why we really did try to get back open again. We do know that the risks are far lower for college age students in terms of being together. We also knew that their compliance was extraordinary. Our positivity rate was very, very low.
Mhm.
And on top of that, we had, I think, in the grand scheme of a whole year, one hospitalization, which we think was actually not related to the coronavirus itself. And so, Jay, having that expertise was important because you have to think about the whole health of a human being.
Mhm.
So obviously not getting sick is critical, and we do everything we can, particularly in the absence of a vaccination that would generate antibodies in people to protect them. However, the mental health and development of young people is a huge part of why we're here. It's what we're doing. And so we needed to be cognizant of that and really pay attention to the ways in which to engage students. And so the other thing that really made me proud is last summer, we knew that we would be going into a fall term without vaccinations. And so we announced that we'd be doing many things online, especially for juniors and seniors, and of course, master's degree students and many others at other levels that were higher than that. And so we basically launched a camp, a summer camp for faculty. We had 1,100 participants who participated in learning how to do more online in an engaged way with digital multimedia technologies that are in the forefront. We also spent some money to ensure that people had those resources. And we know that learning was more effective in the fall than it had been in the spring of 2020. In the spring of 2021, even better. Our outcomes are better. We know that students have learned more, and we know that they were able to cope more effectively with this. So it was important. But when we surveyed students, and we only pulse survey them now, which means that we only give them like one question or maybe two, we know we get better response rates. And what we found is that students were struggling with not being in college. Their reality is presence. It's really important for them to be with their mentors. It's really important for them to be with people who they're learning with. And so we learn a lot in college, not just from our professors, but also from many staff members, but most certainly from other students when we're doing group work. And it just isn't the same when it's on screen. Electronic technologies have brought us wonderful opportunities, but they can't replace human development altogether.
Right, right. And I think that's one of the things that I have been so impressed by in general terms with the VC community, just how everybody came together to respond to the pandemic in their own important ways. But when you assess the entire enterprise, VCU and VCU Health, are there things that stood out to you where you point to big successes where people rallied around and responded well to the pandemic?
Yeah, there were quite a number of things that really stood out in terms of the pandemic. It was really just tremendous compliance, both in the university and in the health system. And candidly, our alumni showed that compliance as well.
Mhm.
I don't think I remember prior to the vaccinations, I don't remember ever seeing anybody inside or outside without a mask on. I have to say that I think that there was great respect that people had for each other. We are a very respectful community. There were a lot of great student leadership examples of, students going into other communities and helping people. There were a lot of great things that happened, despite how difficult all of this was for so many people throughout the world. And when our students saw a lot of those difficulties, they ran in to try to help people. And remember that so many of our areas, they require a learning experience that puts them in that environment, whether it's the social work environment or the healthcare environment or the studio art environment, and many, many others. Certainly the engineering environment, which is really, being in a maker environment. Our students continued to be in those environments, and some took risks. But the truth of the matter is, I can tell you personally, from having continued to stay very involved in my own rounds at the hospitals in the medical respiratory ICUs, there are plenty of ways to be safe. We created protocols and we followed them. And I'm pleased to say, knock on wood, that I didn't get sick, before vaccinations. And I was with patients who had COVID. Many students have been with patients who've had COVID. Many of our nurses, of course, were taken care of on a daily basis, sometimes doing double shifts, COVID patients, and very few people got sick because they followed the protocols. So we're a very compliant environment. We're also a very caring environment. And that's really what stuck out. And it's what we got asked about nationally. How have you made this happen and how have you had such great success? The other thing that was really cool is we didn't have a lot of people just sort of quit on the job.
Mhm.
They kept going. They recognized the mission of this institution and the importance of keeping it moving. I will tell you, I have worked with, over 27 years as president, many faculties and in other places. This is the best faculty that I have ever worked with. They are so dedicated and so committed to our student population. And I can say the same about our staff. I can certainly say the same about our student population. And our students bring a wide range of diverse perspectives, but one thing they all have in common is, I think, love for humanity.
And I think that's one of the things that the pandemic in and of itself would have been a full year. But then we had during this time the social unrest and the striving for social justice, equity issues across the country. VCU also had its challenges around social justice and racial equity this past year. How has the university recognized and responded to these challenges?
Well, for one, we stayed in touch with our students who do bring diverse perspectives and are themselves the kind of diversity that's a microcosm of where the world is headed. So it's a really rich environment of students who are really representative of the population and where the population is headed. We pulse surveyed them, as I mentioned earlier, constantly tried to figure out where they were, how they were doing, what some of the struggles were that they had. And we learned a lot about the struggles of their parents and their families.
Mhm.
We also stayed in touch with faculty and staff and found that many faculty members and staff members and some students had challenges because their parents. And with K-12 schools closed down, they were dealing with a lot of issues around having kids at home, and having to be both teacher of a child as well as, be college teacher, if you will, or college professor. And many of our staff dealt with the same kinds of issues, and certainly our nursing teams and our physician teams and our care partners, they were all dealing with a lot of that. So schools shut down, but I still have to go to work because I work at the hospital, in the hospital. What do I do? Daycares are closed down. It was a real challenge. So we did boost our own daycare system to ensure that that was the case. But these are issues that really disproportionately affected people who are underrepresented in our populations. And so, it was a real challenge, and we knew that we needed to do more to stay in touch with our teams. The other is that there was a strong call over many years that wasn't just last year. In 2017, I charged a group to really take a look at some of the representative um, symbols around campus. And, of course, today we now serve a 40% African American patient population. 10% more are other underrepresented minorities. We are a majority minority patient population. We are a majority minority student population. And so these symbols, we tried to find out what people thought of them and respect and understand where they were coming from. We spent a lot of time doing that over 3 years. And ultimately, the strong recommendation from the groups to the board and to me was for Confederate memorabilia, which of course is representative of history. No one wants to erase that history. It's just, which ways do you display history, and do you really, focus on making it something that is, a symbol of your pride, or is it something that find an appropriate place to say this is the history? And it didn't have a match to a lot of our values that we have today. And so, in very respectful, careful, thoughtful ways, and in a very slow way, a lot of these symbols were removed and decommemorated. So that was really an important part of that. The other thing that we did, Jay, that was really important is charge a group around safety and well-being. So we have a safety and well-being advisory committee that was really focused on developing a new model for public safety at Virginia Commonwealth University under the great leadership of our Chief John Venuti, our police chief. And so, do we want policing or do we want public safety? We want public safety. And of course, we want wellness. And so that sends a strong message to anyone thinking about working at VCU, sends a strong message to really our entire community about what our commitments are. There were, some who suggested that we not have police. Well, that was not an option. And I'm, not interested in that direction, because there are many reasons to have public safety. And it's important. It's an important part of any large community like the VCU community, with 23,000 employees and 30,000 students, and literally hundreds of thousands of people who interact with us. So, what's the best way to have that play out? Well, take everyone's input and then give some thought to the best ways to ensure that it is a commitment to wellness and a commitment to safety, as opposed to policing per se. Policing had some very negative connotations for people of color. Just ask any person of color of almost any age, and they will tell you that that's the case. You can't ignore the fact that, we've worked really hard to recruit people of color to VCU. They are representative of where the population is going. You have to listen to them. And of course, we listen to others as well. There were many people who understood that, commemorative kinds of things that honor the Confederacy were symbols of history. Well, we'll keep them as symbols of history, but the bottom line was, though, that ultimately we had to be realistic about where we are today, and that's why we moved forward in the direction that we did.
Mm-hmm. And it was a very deliberative process, and I think that's a testament to the committee and the university, with which the seriousness with which everybody took the issue. Now, Dr. Rao, you have been president of VCU for 12 years, so this might be a little bit of an unfair question, but what have been some of your favorite memories of your time so far at VCU?
Oh, that is a tough question, but it's a good one. So one that stands out is the Final Four. The Final Four was a time that we really, really moved in a very catalytic way on the international scene. It was great. I think the Sunday prior to the Sweet 16, there were 11 million hits on the VCU website, not the athletics website, the VCU website. And we, of course, had not seen anything like that before. So we were really pleased and honored to have that happen. It was a great coming together of people. There was a level of happiness and cheer and, positivity that I think VCU really needed and certainly deserved. And we have to remember that the folks who brought that to us were members of a basketball team who really came together and demonstrated how people can work together so well and be a team. And we all need to remember that going forward, because we've had some challenges and we need to be sure that we watch like 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old students and some of the ways that they create such incredible positive energy for all of us. And that's one of the things that they certainly did for us. So that was probably one of the most important times at VCU. And then, bringing the campaign to a close with tremendous success was another. And I really enjoyed that. I'm glad you were here for us with that, Jay. You did a great job of helping us to celebrate that. And then one other one was a very complex separation of conjoined twins. So there were some conjoined twins that really were not having any luck connecting with any medical center anywhere. Medical centers often don't like to take surgical risks that they're not sure that they can get through. So these conjoined twins were very conjoined in very risky ways that made it realistically highly risky. But we spent a lot of time with those conjoined twins, understanding through imagery what their challenges might be, how to reconnect each of them individually, if you will, and be sure that we really put them back together as individuals in ways that would enable them to be successful for the rest of their lives. They did really well, and it involved every discipline on campus. We had 16 different areas that were involved, and while we were studying the conjoined twins, we had our fashion design folks design clothes that they could both wear at the same time, because, as I said, they were very conjoined at their in their abdomens. And so anyway, that's another time that was just full of joy and happiness, and I was really excited about that.
And that shows truly the breadth of experiences that kind of cover your plate in the course of a year or even over a presidency. It's just such a wide variety.
But Jay, the one that really stands out, there was, I think, a point at which we had a commencement ceremony that I got a heads up on how rapidly our graduation rate had just taken a huge swing upward. We had, as I said, we were 48%, we were around 70%, but there was a giant jump from 50 something up into the middle 60s. And it was a very immediate impact because we recognized that we couldn't get, we had a real problem with space, frankly, that spring. We were in the convention center and it was jam packed. And I think every single student seat was taken, which we hadn't seen before. And pretty much every seat in the Coliseum itself was taken. I said convention center, but it was actually in the Coliseum in those days. And so that was another moment that I realized, okay, we've been working hard and it's working, because you're moving masses of people, right, from taking longer times to graduate to finally graduating on time. So that was a great moment too. And I was really proud of our students for that.
Now, one of the things that's happening to you this year, and it's been growing over the course of your presidency, but you're taking on increasing state and national responsibilities as the VCU president. What do you enjoy most about these roles, like the President's Council for the state and ACE?
Yeah, so this last year, I had been elected to serve as chair of the Council of Presidents of Virginia universities and colleges. So that includes the community colleges. It includes all of the universities, UVA and Virginia State, Norfolk State, and all of the rest, VMI. And so it was an interesting year to be chair. We at one point were literally meeting weekly. So that was unusual. We had typically met monthly in person. So now we were meeting constantly in Zoom. We did have a couple of meetings in person, which was also very, very good. It was intense. So we were talking about testing and vaccinations, and we're now talking about requiring vaccinations and how that might play out. And some of us have hospitals, some of us have other things that make us unique. But the reality is, this is the best group of presidents I've ever worked with in my entire 27 years. We have all come out of every meeting fully supportive of every one of Virginia's colleges and universities. And I'm very grateful to this team of presidents for their support. So my term comes to an end soon here, but it's been an honor and privilege to serve as chair. The other thing that it looks like I'll be headed toward as chair is ACE. It will be an honor for Richmond and, of course, for VCU to be on that national stage. Me aside, I mean, I'm honored and privileged to be there, but it's great for VCU. The other advantage, Jay, is that we'll have an opportunity to learn more from schools and colleges from around the country. So, we've got on our board, the president of New York University, Harvard University's president is on our board. And lots of great community colleges and colleges all over the West. The president of the University of California, Davis. He's actually called chancellor. He's on our board as well. It's a huge board and a huge responsibility for us, and lots of variable needs that have to come to our table and be discussed. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm also hoping that now that we're all vaccinated, we can do more of this in person, so that we're not Zooming every week. But again, it's a great way for us to learn. And I'm really, really pleased that we'll have this exposure as an institution nationally. So that'll be really, really good. This last year, I served as chair of the Urban Serving Universities of the Association of Public Land Grant Universities as well. That's been great exposure. We are definitely looked at among the top, like places like Arizona State and Georgia State, as among the top urban public research universities. And I'm very proud of our team for helping us get there.
Absolutely. Now, I ask each of our deans this when I've interviewed them, and that's if you could wave a magic wand, what is the one thing that you would change about American higher education? What would you change if you had such a magic wand?
Yeah, that's a hard question, but it's an easy one because my mind rolls right to what we need to be doing. We need to be meeting our students where they are.
Hmm.
Students are changing very, very rapidly. We've got to pay attention to where they are. Our students are, I would say, at the forefront of a lot of that change. They have great visions of the future. They're more aware of how different people are now. They're more aware of the ways in which things could be better for everybody, not just those who it's been better for. Um, our students are, they are great visionaries for a human future that is more inclusive of everyone. And that's going to be better for everybody. There are a few people, not very many, who think, that it's better for just a handful of us to do well. But the truth is, wisdom tells us over and over, and certainly there's plenty of evidence for this, that when we all do well, each of us does well. And so, and that's our mission. That's really what we stand for. So we're really going to have to try to do our best to make sure that we respect our traditions and that we, respect and honor all of the ways in which we engage my colleagues as faculty. But I'm going to do everything I can to encourage my colleagues to continue to think about ways, exciting ways for us to do what we've done with students differently. So the fact of the matter is, we really have not actually changed a lot of what we do in 1,000 years. So if you go back to Oxford and Cambridge, Cambridge and Oxford had classrooms and people sitting in rows and listening to one talking head and writing notes and regurgitating all of that back. Well, some people did learn well. What we know is that when you do not provide students with a context in which what you want them to learn becomes important to them, they don't learn. So we, of course, changed medical education dramatically for that reason. We do much less in the classroom than we used to, and we do far more in the clinical environment. And we get students into that clinical environment much faster. We get them together with patients, with the patients' families, and of course with practitioners, so that they can see how those practitioners interface with both patients and their families. How you communicate with them. I mean, the truth of the matter is, we haven't solved every problem. We're not saving every life yet. And you got to communicate. You got to be connected with people. You have to understand why certain values on somebody's complete blood count matter to the condition that they brought to the clinic, and be able to tell them in English what it's all about, right? So if we kept you in the classroom, you might, have a very scientific explanation for, what acetyl coenzyme A means, right? And why it's important to understand that. But that's not going to make a lot of sense to a patient. So you take that model and you spread it to the rest of the university. And we become less self-oriented as professors and more geared towards students and meeting them where they are and recognizing how they learn best. And that's the way that I would wave a magic wand to really change a lot faster to meet our students where they are so that more of them can be successful.
Now, after being here for 12 years, I have a sense that people feel that they have a really good sense of you. They know you well. They know all about you. But share something about yourself that might surprise people, that maybe folks at VCU and then in the alumni community might not know about you.
Well, I mean, I think one thing that most people probably do not know is that my hands spend a lot of time in the garden. I really enjoy working with plants. I really enjoy planting and gardening. It's a wonderful way for me to really connect with Earth, and I enjoy it tremendously. I don't think most people don't know that, although in the last couple of years I haven't done much with it, that my one of my sons, actually both of my sons and I have volunteered at a local organization that is committed to helping homeless guys get their first jobs and their first homes. We've worked in a detox with these guys, trying to help them get to the next step and level. And we've worked with, and I, of course, earlier in my own career, worked with people who had fairly severe mental illness, which has been helpful on many fronts, I have to say. But most certainly in my volunteer work. And then I guess most people don't know that I swim a lot. So I love to be in water, and that's where I get, candidly lapping back and forth in an Olympic sized pool is where I do really actually solve a lot of problems in my head. And to be clear, most of my problems are VCU problems. So it enables me to think through things. As I get older, I'm trying to think about how while I'm under the water can I extend my long list of things in a way that I will remember them all once I'm out of the water, because I can't write them down, obviously. But it's 10 or 12 things, and what I often do is I get out of the pool and I rush for a pad of paper and a pencil or my phone or whatever, and I just type it all in so I don't forget those 10 or 12 things and how I'm going to solve those problems. So those are a few things that probably most people don't know about me. But the only other thing I would say is I hope most people know this about me. I'm extraordinarily grateful to have the privilege of being in a position to really impact positively the lives of so many people, so many patients, so many students, and of course, our team of 23,000. And we're doing our best to make VCU a stronger and better place every day. And I think the evidence shows, the numbers certainly show that we're making very good headway. And my intention will be, of course, to make even greater headway at a faster pace in the years to come.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to share this information with us today. It's a truly remarkable 12 years, and I know VCU is looking forward to the next 12.
As am I. Thank you very much, Jay.
Thanks so much, Dr. Rao.